Yo, what up, peeps, and welcome to Entertainment Rewind, the hottest show to listen to live on YouTube, Anchor FM, and Disney XD. I am
Disney XD. We got that contract?
Yes.
Cool, alright.
I am your host, Fuzzy, and I am joined by
PasMorning.
and I am joined also by
Ambrose. I remembered mine.
we have an excellent show planned for you. So sit down, grab some snacks in your Mountain Dew 6-pack as we unbox our top 10 favorite video games. Now there might be some similarities between the three of us, but it's okay because it'd be interesting to see how they compare.
Alright, so for our list of top 10 animated movies, starting off with, obviously, number 10. I'll go first. So, my pick for number 10 as far as animated movies go, and I want to preface this by saying, when I'm doing this list, I could have very easily have just put in Disney movies all over it.
Yeah, because you're kind of a Disney horse.
Hey.
Sorry, I've been holding that in all week.
But, I mean, it's true. I do love Disney movies, so I could have easily put Disney movies all over it. But I did want to limit myself, so I only have a handful of Disney movies, and I tried to branch out and do other ones too. So, it's not all Disney movies. With that being said, my first one is Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
That's I see that you're looking.
I'm waiting for the reactions here.
Yeah. Mr. Peabody and whatever. Isn't that the dog? He's like,
No,
it was not Claymation.
No, the dog that's super smart and adopts a kid.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Mr. Peabody and Sherman was originally a cartoon back in the old days. I think it was on with like Rocky and Bullwinkle.
What was it? Didn't it used to be like it was like a newspaper comic or something?
I think it was too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it used to be with
the days of Garfield and
yeah. It used to be with Rocky and Bullwinkle. And it's a show about a really smart dog who adopts a child, and he uses time travel to teach his son about history. Now, the Mr. Peabody and Sherman movie came out a few years ago by DreamWorks. And part of the reason I love it, right off the bat, I love time travel movies. And I love history. So
I like them when they're done properly. Some time travel-esque things, put so many contradictions in and on themselves that it's hard to take them seriously.
Right.
And in that movie, you don't necessarily have to take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cartoon comedy movie for kids, so they're not going to bother with time travel, all this stuff.
Yeah. I
what I like about it, though, is I love history. I always have. I've been a fan of history since I was a kid. I love learning about stuff that happened in the past.
History.
I suck at it.
So this movie, which first of all, I actually remember watching the cartoon as a kid. I remember it coming on super late at night, and I should have been asleep, but I wasn't. So I remember watching it, and I love the way that they go about it. And the movie is really good too because it's not just about time travel and history and stuff like that. It also talks about the idea of a dog adopting and being the father to a child, which is a very weird concept.
It's role reversal essentially,
right? And so a premise of the movie is there's a part where Sherman, who was raised by a dog, bites a girl at school who was being mean to him. And then the whole thing is basically about, Mr. Peabody is basically called into question as can you really be a good father to this boy? Because he just bit some girl, which is something that dogs typically do. And so, and then with doing that, Mr. Peabody is all inviting people over for dinner, we should get people for dinner and we'll talk about this. And then havoc ensues when they go back in time.
Right. In the most worst possible time.
Yeah. So it's actually a really clever movie. I put it at number 10 because it's not really the best movie DreamWorks has ever done. I put it there mainly because I love the original cartoon. I love what it is.
Yeah, it's very well memorable. It's not something I would watch twice, but I did like it the first time.
I've actually watched it a couple times, and I really enjoy it, but it's definitely not something that I'm going to watch all the time.
Right.
Alright, with that being said, Fuzzy, what is your number 10?
Well, when I was just a little pipsqueak, I used to love the Land Before Time saga.
Oh, I love those movies.
Forgot all about that.
Between that, The Lion King, and weirdly enough, Twister, those movies were ones that I watched all the time growing up.
What was the third one you said?
Twister.
That's what I thought you said.
I was a big Twister fan.
But anyways, the reason I'm rating it number 10 is because I don't think it aged really well. I
really didn't.
I wanted to go back and rewatch it just to kind of revisit that childhood, but I'm I don't know, this kind of seems a bit dated. I mean, I really liked it, and if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. I don't know if the newer movies 5 to 10 is any good or not.
From what I understand, some of the newer ones are just kind of lame. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any.
Right.
I think I watched the first 8 of them, maybe.
They were putting out the next in the series just to put next.
It was basically like Assassin's Creed of movies, where they come out with a new one every year or so.
But I mean, I loved all the characters. I mean, but I just don't think I'm ever going to watch them. Maybe when I have kids, maybe I'll have them watch.
Oh, I loved the original Land Before Time. It was really good. I loved up until a point, and then I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm too old for this now. I don't really care for these movies anymore. And now I'm a 25-year-old man, and I love animated movies all over again. So
Right, because it's like at a certain age, you know, that kind of thing ain't cool, and then when you get older, it's like
I don't care if it's cool. I don't care.
Right,
You know,
I like it. I'm gonna just like it.
Right.
You know, it's actually kind of funny. I got into an argument with a friend of mine who said, "Oh, Fuzzy, you're 28 years old. You shouldn't be liking animated movies." I'm like, would you rather watch me watch Game of Thrones where the ladies fuck the dragons and all of that? I mean,
I never watched that. I don't think that's what happens.
Well, that's what happens either, but
well,
I mean, it
there's
wouldn't
so much-
entirely surprise me.
Yeah, especially given the context of Game of Thrones. But still,
Yeah.
it's like, which would you rather have me watch?
Yeah. I mean, every time a new animated movie comes out, I'm a 25-year-old. I watched the Lego Movie 2 in the theaters about a month or so ago, and I'm sitting there with two of my grown friends with a beer in my hand at a kids movie.
I mean,
I didn't
care.
Hey, yeah.
What
So-
about you, PasMorning?
Number 10. I'm probably going to be laughed at for this, but, you know, yeah, fuck it. Shrek.
Shrek's not. You know what? I'm
A lot
surprised
of
it's a
people-
little lower because like everybody loves Shrek, at least the original one, anyways.
Yeah, the original Shrek. I've seen, like, all the other ones, and they're okay, but Shrek, the first one, is, like, the only one that I would actually consider going back and watching.
Yeah, I think I watched the second one like once or twice, and I wasn't as crazy about it. But the first one's like it's a classic.
Right. Just like Ice Age. The first Ice Age was, like, for me, loved it. But then it feels played out the more they do with it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things where it's a popular series, so they're like, oh, we need to make more of these movies,
Right.
and then they just kind of dip in quality.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need, you know, additional series. The big reason why I liked it is Eddie Murphy plays the donkey. Mike Myers,
He's the highlight of the movie, really.
right. Mike Myers plays
Now that's a movie
Shrek.
where the guy fucks the dragon.
Yeah, Dragon does get it. It's,
I'd rather not think about that.
It is interesting to think about just the
What's
size
that
of the
How does this work?
right.
Do you know who doesn't like Shrek? Smash Mouth.
Smash Mouth.
All-Star.
They
What?
were in the movie.
I know.
Their song
But
was in the
everybody-
movie.
I know,
Oh,
but
right,
And
everybody-
that was a thing too, is watching it gives you a big form of nostalgia because they play like these old songs from my childhood that you really ain't gonna see in anything new, whatever. So
Right.
even though they're not necessarily cool or relevant these days, it is super fun to kind of like relive those moments in that movie for sure.
And with the original one too, it's got like all the fairy tale characters and stuff like that, which I
Right.
thought was a nice twist on it, like
Yeah,
making some of the characters that
seeing
are
it in a different light.
right, like how at the beginning of the first one they had, you know, the Peter Pan and Three Little Pigs and all that stuff getting round up and taken away and stuff like that, and you know, it was just an interesting take on some of those old school
Right.
characters.
There's bound to be at least one character, like if you've never seen the movie, there's bound to be at least one character in there that you're gonna, you know, immediately recognize, even if they show them in a different way, you know, like the Three Blind Mice,
Yep.
Snow White, the Big Bad Wolf, the list goes on.
Gingerbread Man.
Pinocchio. Anyway, yeah, I like that part.
I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, Shrek.
And not to mention, it's it's an animated movie that's very adult too.
It
Like,
is.
I mean, it's a kids movie, quote unquote, like a family movie. You can get away with letting your kids see it, but there's a lot of jokes in there that are definitely for adults.
And he actually cusses,
Yeah.
but it's technically not a curse word either. So,
Which what are you referring to?
well, okay, like Shrek saves the princess or whatever.
Oh, my
And-
ass! Yeah, I
Yeah,
have to
like,
say
well,
my
I gotta
ass.
go save my ass,
Yeah.
and that is technically not a swear word because
He's talking
ass
about donkey.
is a different
Yeah.
way to say donkey. But
Right.
it's very obvious what that was meant to be.
Yeah.
For sure.
And actually, when I first watched it, I thought that's what he was saying. Was he was trying to save his ass, like trying
Right.
to save him.
Ambrose,
Ambrose,
number 9.
number
That's
9.
me! Alright, so this movie is probably a little lesser known to some people. I know Fuzzy has seen it, but I chose The Pagemaster. that familiar to you?
Yeah.
I know.
It's such an old movie. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I used to love the Page Man.
When I was a child, it was a movie I loved to watch all the time. I mean, for one thing, it's got Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone. I love the Home Alone movies.
Yep.
But what I loved about this movie is that it took the old school fairy tale stories that I like, which is ironic because I don't enjoy reading very much, mostly because I'm dyslexic. But I love those. I love the characters though. I love the stories that go along with them. So seeing those characters come into this movie was really really fun. And of course, it's one of those live action to animated movies, and those are always kind of interesting to see how they work out. But no, ever since I was a kid, I think it came out in 1994, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds about right.
And it was a movie that my sister had, and a lot of the movies that I watched as a kid, my sister had because she was big into the Disney movies stuff too. And I remember just watching it for the first time, and I was like, "This is just an awesome movie."
It is. I actually completely forgot all about it until Ambrose was telling me.
Yeah, no, I completely forgot that movie even existed. Now I've kind of got a craving to watch it again.
I've got it on DVD if you ever want to watch it.
I'll keep that in mind.
That movie deserves more love.
Oh yeah, it's not very well talked about.
Well, it's very well. I think we kind of just proved the point. It's not very well remembered either, seeing as all three of us have watched it and probably was a big part of our childhood. I completely forgot it even existed.
Yeah. Oh no! So I loved the movie. It's still lower on my list just because there are other movies that I like better,
and that's fair.
And this is probably a good time to say too that these movies that I picked aren't necessarily what I consider the 10 best animated movies, but they're ones that are commonly like these are ones that I really like. So they're not necessarily my top 10 favorite animated movies.
Right.
But they're definitely ones that at any given day I could say, yeah, I really love that movie, and so I'm going to put it on the list.
Doing a top 10 of like the best movies, whatever, is super difficult to do because you like movies for different reasons.
Yeah, and my list could change every day. There could come a time where, in a couple days I'll say, oh no, this was supposed to be in that list. So it's different. But honestly, about Page Master too, the fact that they had Christopher Lloyd in it after all the stuff he did in Back to the Future, which is another one of my favorite movies. I love Back to the Future. They had Christopher Lloyd as the librarian / Page Master, and just that was a nice touch. I loved the movie. I thought it was really good. It scared me at some points as a kid to the whole horror section thing they had, but I thought it was a really well done way to do it, and it was a nice sort of coming of age story too, because it's about him overcoming his fear and trying to be more brave and stuff like that. And I love the movie. It was one of my favorites as a kid. So Fuzzy, number 9.
Spirited Away. Now, I loved Spirited Away. It's one of the movies that actually drew my interest in the anime portion.
All right, hold on a second. Let me clarify something. Are those movies considered anime? Like the Studio Ghibli movies or whatever they're called? Are those anime?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because they don't look like your stereotypical anime.
No, they do it. They do it in a completely different art style. But yeah, it is considered.
It is considered anime.
Yeah,
I always wondered. I wasn't sure because I don't personally watch those movies that much. But I was always curious.
No, that's fine. Anyways, I'm not alone. Apparently, I was digging deeper into it, and at the time, it actually surpassed Titanic for the highest grossing movie. It also won a bunch of different awards, and it's ranked the 4th best animated movie of all time in 2016 by the BBC and 2017 by the New York Times. So, this movie is really good. I can't say any of the characters' names because I only speak English and Drunkenese, but still,
gibberish.
The thing is, I just loved it. And there's so many great memes from that movie when the main character is at the table and this big guy's just stuffing food into his mouth and all that.
Yeah, the mask guy.
So, needless to say, I haven't seen the movie, so I have no idea what it's about.
I think you would like it.
But I was whenever I do a list, I always try to look up on the internet and say, what do other people say are the best ones? That way I can kind of get an idea.
I do that too.
And a lot of times, this one was the top of the list for a lot of people. It was number 1. Mm-hmm. And I've heard of it before, but I've never seen it. So I don't know. I've been kind of branching out on my tastes of stuff over the years, so maybe I will give it a try sometime. Who knows? PasMorning, number 9.
South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut.
Me and Fuzzy were talking earlier before you got here. We weren't sure if anyone was going to put it in because we both remembered it last minute.
I put it in. One of my favorite childhood movies.
Oh my!
Well, it's one of my favorite childhood movies.
Which is kind of sad when you think about it.
It's also great.
Whatever, I watched it a lot. But yeah, no, like the musical aspect in it is kind of funny, and
it's got some really good music in it for South Park. Like,
right.
I mean, actually, South Park's got really good.
Yeah, the thing that you were about to sing, that one is a very memorable one.
Such a fucking face, Uncle Fucker.
Blame Canada was one of my favorite.
My favorite one is when Kenny's rising up to heaven, and it's all like, nice and chill, and he goes to hit that button, and it says access denied, and he just plummets down into hell, and they play that really nice rock music backdrop to it. I like that one. That part was funny.
I'm really surprised because you're not a big fan of South Park, but you seem to like this movie.
I feel like South Park, it's not a very good cartoon in my opinion. I mean, it started off as good, but it kind of like shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy and all shows that were good at one point, and they just keep going far beyond.
I love South Park. I've been watching it ever since it came out. Like way back when I was a kid watching South Park, which probably says a lot.
It says a lot about who you are.
But yeah, the newer ones, like the past, 2-3 seasons, I could honestly just do without.
Yeah.
They weren't all that interesting, but... So yeah, the reason why I picked this one is because it may not have done the test of time, but it was done in, like, essentially their heyday.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of South Park necessarily. I mean, I enjoy it when I watch it.
Yeah.
But I don't go out of my way to watch it. And the same thing kind of with this movie. Like, whenever I do watch it, I enjoy it. But it's not something I necessarily go out of my way to watch.
Yeah, that's why it's number 9. It's good, but it's not binge worthy. Yeah, necessarily.
I'd watch it all the time if I have the time.
Well, it's on Netflix, so I mean, you get the chance to watch it whenever you want.
Yeah, it is on Netflix, or it was.
At least it might not be.
It may not be on. I think
it was removed. Ambrose, number 8.
So after saying that I'm not a big fan of anime, I decided to put one anime movie on this list.
Okay.
And you're going to love what it is, because it's Pokemon. The best anime ever!
Which Pokemon?
That's debatable.
It's the first Pokemon movie. Okay. Which, part of the reason... And actually, this was one I added to my list, like, last minute. I originally had a different one on this list, but I decided I wanted to change it up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I love the Pokemon series. I did as a kid. Some of the later ones I haven't seen. I actually just started rewatching the original anime a couple days ago.
Nice.
So I'm kind of, like, got it fresh in my mind. But the first movie of Pokemon, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was one of, if not the first movie I ever went to see in theaters. I remember my sister taking me to see it when I was a kid. I could be wrong. I think it might have been Toy Story now that I think about it, but I don't remember. It's one of the first ones I remember seeing in theaters. And I loved the story behind it, the whole idea of Mewtwo, which, was basically a legend in the games because...
And that was done a little more... He is one of the more darker characters, too. You get later into the Pokemon series, they don't get quite as twisted as Mewtwo.
Yeah, and I like too that the anime and the games aren't like super connected to the point where like everything that happens in the games happens in the anime.
Right, they can kind of be separated but kind of connected at the same time.
And I like how the movie kind of like took from the video game in that front, and like the video game almost like copied it and almost made it canon in a way too. Mm-hmm. Like there's some talks. There's a big. I remember I mentioned in our video game villains list. I mentioned Team Rocket, and I mentioned that I didn't mention this though, but it reminded me now of in that game. There's a common fan theory that says that the reason why Team Rocket is doing what they do in the game is because they're trying to catch Mewtwo. They're trying to make up for the mistake that they made because they're the reason why Mewtwo is a thing, and so they're trying to fix their mistake basically.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was Giovanni from Team Rocket who made Mewtwo.
Well, he didn't personally make it, but he had the scientist that did it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool that they took that. It kind of relates back to the game in a way because everything that it happens in the games, you can see kind of makes sense. Like them kind of get the Master Ball is like they're trying to catch Mewtwo again, and then they're in the Lavender Town trying to catch ghosts because ghosts are strong against psychics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason why I chose this one as a good movie is because it kind of ties back to the games and adds more lore to the games instead of just being a one-off movie for the anime. In fact, apparently it's so popular that apparently Mewtwo is classified as a video game villain even though he's not actually a villain in the video game series necessarily.
Right.
I've actually been meaning to go back and watch some of the old Pokemon movies and TV
now,
shows.
Pokemon. So yeah, getting into the TV show, I've tried. You know, I have fond memories of it back when I was a kid, but it's like hard to get into it. But one thing I've never had a difficulty with is watching a Pokemon movie.
Oh yeah.
Like even people that you know, fuck Pokemon anime, whatever, no problem. Just like, hey, let's watch a Pokemon movie. No issues. I'm kind of disappointed in myself because my favorite. I'm going to do an honorable mention because I didn't put it on mine. Number 3, the one with Entei.
That was a good one.
That one was my favorite.
Yep.
And then the one soon, and the one before that is like right behind it. The one with Lugia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Pokemon movies, like I said, not a huge. Like I've gotten into some animes over the years.
Right.
Pokemon, obviously, people say, "Oh, that's not a true anime." Blah blah blah. Whatever. I don't care. I love it, and I love the movies. The movies have always been good. They're always a crucial part of my childhood.
Yep.
Honestly, I might watch Pokemon the first movie over and over again until I die. I don't even care.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I don't want to spark any debates down in the comments below, but I was never big into Pokemon, the TV show.
Blasphemy! No,
Well,
actually, you know what? You're
that's
probably
fine.
right.
The thing is, I've always liked Digimon, but I've always liked the Pokemon movies themselves.
No, that was an interesting thing. You know, a lot of people were like either Digimon or Pokemon.
I mean, both are good, but
they were enough different to where, like, I personally love both of them.
Mm-hmm. I think the movies were like the definitive part of what made the anime of Pokemon good. Though.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. And also the really good game series that they popped out as well.
Yeah.
Which Digimon was a little lacking.
Yeah, the
in
games for
few of them.
Digimon were kind of...
So, all tangents aside, Fuzzy, what is your number 8 pick?
Now, for my number 8 pick, The Iron Giant is a movie that I loved growing up as well. And it's actually pretty dark.
It
If
is.
memory serves correctly, Hugar saves the robot when he's attached to the high wire electricity. And the robot almost dies right there from the get-go.
Mhm.
But the robot befriends Hugar. And what I really loved is some of the references that I use a lot in everyday life. Like, when they go swimming in a pond, I'll always say, whenever something happens, I might say, I think that's enough fun for one day, and all that.
Mm.
Just a lot of references. This movie is actually pretty good. One of the things is that Warner Brothers really had some big balls when they have the villain send up the nuclear warhead to destroy the giant robot.
Mm.
And the robot sacrifices himself. I mean, overall, it's a really good movie. I like it, and that's also a movie that's on my list to rewatch.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It does. Now you did say, at least I think you did say that there are some dark tones to it.
Mm-hmm.
The Iron Giant not necessarily understanding, human emotions and this, that, and everything else. There is one thing that he does understand, kind of painfully for him, is death.
Mm-hmm.
When he first sees, a dead deer, and Hogarth's got to explain to him, yeah, dead, can't move, done. And
Man,
that was a depressing thing for the robot to take in. And also had a retaliation to anything that could cause death, which ultimately leads to, some big conflicts happening in there.
It is a really big jerker movie. Really.
It is.
And that's what's like really good about animated movies is that they are very good at tackling hard subjects for kids to grasp, but doing it in a way that like
in a more cutesy, colorful.
Yeah,
manner,
big example, Bambi, for example.
God.
The death of Bambi's mother was like one of the biggest like tearjerker moments in cinema history. And it teaches kids about death, like the importance of death, but it does it in a way that's subtle enough that you're not like showing graphic imagery on screen necessarily.
Right.
And so like I think that's one thing that's good about these kinds of movies is that they're able to get kids introduced to concepts that they're not necessarily familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
But might have to come to terms with at some point or another.
Exactly. Like
Sure.
and it's better to, kind of feel that out a little bit and say, hey, this is something that happens, as opposed to just like, hey, you have to deal with this just all of a sudden. Like,
No, do either of you two remember? But I was thinking, wasn't this movie's era around kind of like the movie scene kind of take place on like the Cold War era, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think so. Like
Because I
Cold
kinda got
War,
that
World War II,
vibe.
something like that.
It definitely seems.
It's definitely got a
it
war
takes
vibe
place-
to it.
Yeah,
Definitely, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
But that was my number 8 pick.
And-
PasMorning, what is your?
Yeah. Okay. So by number 8, it's more of a recent film. It is not for children. So Sausage Party.
Oh, Sausage Party, huh?
Yeah.
my.
That's an interesting pick.
Which I loved it. I like things that
Somehow I'm
are
not surprised.
yeah, whatever. But it was cutesy, colorful. Like you first, like if you were like me, you first saw like the first trailer of it and everything, and it was cute. You know, they're gonna go home to this family and everything's great, and they looked at the consumer as gods essentially, and then just mass murder, and just loved it.
I know.
You immediately realize that this is not a kid's cartoon. This is not for kids.
It is for kids.
Well,
They need to learn about the circle of life.
right.
That's what Lion King is for.
Yeah,
Literally
so-
a whole song about it.
Yeah, so it's got, the main antagonist, spoiler alert, the main antagonist is a douchebag. A literal douchebag.
That's kind of on the nose writing right there.
Right, a literal, that is what he is a douchebag going after the main protagonist. And they essentially go over, death and stuff like that, and everything that they knew was not true, and decide to retaliate against, pretty much everything that they thought was true and ended up not being. But there's really no point in looking into all that. It's pretty much just obscene and inappropriate for the sake of just being that. And that is one of the most enjoyable things to me, is that you don't need to necessarily pay attention to the plot. You don't need to necessarily be super engrossed into it, but you can't turn away at all. And so, yeah.
My mother did.
I don't blame her. Did she turn when she saw the condom? Because
We didn't even get that far.
oh wow, that's like the best scene.
So I haven't watched this movie. Just because it didn't really look all that interesting to me. Mostly because the first trailer looked kind of like, this looks kind of stupid. And then after it came out, I heard all of the controversy that people had about it, and I'm kind of curious now. What? What's the deal with this? It's a movie that I thought was about hot dogs. Apparently, it's not.
Oh yeah.
No.
The splooge. You remember that part? Oh yeah. Oh man, that was good.
So I might have to add this to my list of watch, but not with my mom at home.
Yes.
No, yeah.
But don't invite any of your Christian friends over.
Yeah, no.
I might not have any more Christian friends left after that.
Yeah, so you definitely maybe not for kids or the elderly that probably wouldn't be into that kind of thing.
I have a heart attack.
Right, it's obscene, but all in all, good.
But
movie.
I gotta say, I gotta respect a movie that's willing to just be obscene.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age where everyone just gets offended by everything all the time.
Right.
Like a movie that's just like, you know what? I don't care if you're offended. We're just going to do this. I can respect that.
Yeah. Now I'm not going to go too much into whatever, but there are offensive things thrown in there just for the sake of being offensive. They make racial jokes and other stuff like that, more in a cutesy, cartoony, whatever. But yeah, that makes my number 8 spot just because it is obscene and I like that. Ambrose, you're next.
Indeed, I am.
What is your number 7?
Well, this one might be a little surprising for as low as it is, and I think it's probably one that all three of us can agree on. How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes.
It's probably lower than a lot of people would have suggested.
Now, just to specify, you're talking the first one,
the original one.
The original one.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I love all the movies,
Right.
But just the first one specifically is in
Yeah.
this list. And I remember watching How to Train Your Dragon. I thought it was a really good movie, and I really loved it. But I've only ever seen it once. It wasn't one that I ever really thought to rewatch until recently. Anyways, I did go back and rewatch it after watching the third one.
I binge watched that movie when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Big dragon fan, big, adventure, whatever aspects, the whole, controlling dragons aspects, fighting dragons, love dragons.
Yeah,
I mean, it does feel a little bit weaker compared to the second and third one, but still, it's a pretty good movie. I like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, we did a, discussion about How to Train Your Dragon 3 just a few weeks ago. There's a plug right there if you guys want to go watch that one.
After this video, of course.
Yeah, so don't click away too quickly. But I did really enjoy the first one. Like I said, I up until recently I only saw it once. I did buy both of the first two movies on Blu-ray after watching the third one. Mm-hmm. And it's one that I will easily put in rotation again. I think at first I didn't really remember it that much. I was like, okay, it was a good movie, but DreamWorks has never really been super memorable to me for a lot of them, with the exception of Shrek and Kung Fu Panda. Yes. But then recently I started hey, DreamWorks is actually really good. I didn't really give them much recognition at first. How to Train Your Dragon, honestly, part of it too is I feel like if I didn't put it in, I'd have some friends who'd be mad at me. But no, it's a really good movie. It deserves all the praise that it gets, and I really nothing else to say about it. Most of what we've said probably could be just traced back to what we saw a few weeks ago too. Mm-hmm. So Fuzzy, what is your number 7?
We're on 7?
Yes.
Professionals.
Yes.
We know what we're doing, guys.
For my number 7 pick, I'm going to anger Ambrose a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I am going to criticize Disney because they've given us dozens of reboots and sequels to movies that should be dead, or I generally don't care for, Star Wars. But it's heartbreaking because I love Big Hero 6, and that's pretty much a dead IP at this point.
No, it's not. They have an animated series about it.
Oh.
They put an animated series?
Mm-hmm. It's on Disney XD.
I guess.
Explains why I wouldn't know. I don't watch.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen it myself, but it sounds really good. Anyways, yeah. So it's not dead, but they haven't done anything with it for a little while.
Yeah, I don't watch it.
With the exception of Kingdom Hearts 3.
But I would watch that maybe.
But it's a shame because I love Baymax, and the thing is, Disney should be doing more with that IP because they could be losing out financially. Because that was a good entry for Disney making a superhero movie. That was pretty bold of them. Not only that, for people who aren't really big into superheroes like myself, that's kind of a gateway into liking superhero movies.
Mm-hmm. And it's definitely not your typical, superhero movie either.
Right. I kind of it's almost like a Batman syndrome. Something bad happens, which makes, the main characters, whatever, essentially use their smarts, their brains, whatever, in order to make themselves up to be heroes, if only to take out that one specific villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like that kind of stuff. And I also like Baymax.
Everybody loves Baymax. If you don't like Baymax, get the hell out.
Yeah,
you are not welcome.
That's just un-American.
Yeah, he's a cute, whatever, giant marshmallow robot, whatever, that's main function is to assist people. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the main character tries to manipulate that in a few different ways, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's no secret, Kingdom Hearts, I love Kingdom Hearts, and one of the ones that, one of the big worlds I was looking forward to in Kingdom Hearts 3 was Big Hero 6 World. I love Big Hero 6. I was really looking forward to that, so I get what you're saying. Big Hero 6 is definitely really great. And I think Baymax is a big part of that. He's arguably one of the best characters in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Right, for sure.
And I think, just on the idea of the fact that all the characters in the movie don't actually have superpowers, but it's still a superhero movie, that's kind of a nice touch, too. Mm-hmm. They're just using they're just using their smarts.
Yeah.
They're just smart guys who create
aside from one of them.
Yeah, well, he doesn't even have powers, he just has a suit that breathes fire. Which is really cool, but badass as hell. I wish I could do that.
Right. I think I'm number 7, right?
Yeah, number 7.
I'm the next guy. This was already on the list, as said by Fuzzy, Spirited Away. one of my favorite childhood movies done by Studio Ghibli, which we didn't get like super into like the plot, but it's essentially a little girl moving to a new place. Yeah, they move to a new place and they walk into, go exploring after hitting a roadblock, and they go into this tunnel and whatever, and then some stuff happens and she is essentially trapped there. And a lot of what happens in Studio Ghibli films is it's not necessarily what is said, but how it is done. Mm-hmm. Just as much of the story can be imparted on you as what you see and like the experiences, just as much as someone actually explaining it to you. So it's not a movie I could personally like say this is why I like it, that is why whatever. I would just say watch it and kind of like get your own message out of it. So I think that's what it imparts on it. I will say the No Name, I think that's what they call them.
Yeah.
A shadowy black figure with a creepy mask thing, straight up like eating people, and that freaking scene where he's got his palms out and he's going, like he's trying to tempt someone into, coming closer. And that terrified me. That whole aspect terrified me. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Spirited Away. I won't get any further into that because it's already been on the list. And we'll pass it to Ambrose. What's your number 6?
All right, so number 6 is another movie that I felt like if I didn't put on there, my sister would probably have my head because it's her favorite movie. But it's also one of mine, so I can't
Shout out to Ambrose's sister.
So I can't really, deny that I love the movie as well. Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a very, very good movie. Technically Disney, so this is one of them Disney ones that I'm throwing in there. But also kind of not Disney. It's actually originally was produced by Touchstone, which is like the Disney for adults type thing, quote unquote. Okay. But it has since been kind of into Disney. It's in Kingdom Hearts, and it's got Walt Disney plastered on the DVD and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
love The Nightmare Before Christmas though. It's a movie that I watch even though it's technically considered a holiday movie. I watch it all the time.
That is an odd movie that you can watch. You can kind of watch it in 2 different seasons that are not connected.
You can watch it from Halloween all the way to Christmas. If you can even watch a Thanksgiving movie, apparently.
You can even watch it on Easter because the Easter Bunny is in it.
It's true.
Yeah, for like 5 seconds.
Watch it every holiday.
Yeah, it's a really good movie, and a lot of people look at movies like that and they are immediately turned off because claymation isn't a super big deal to a lot of people. They don't really enjoy claymation movies.
Right. Claymation can be a bit difficult to have it turn out good.
Yeah.
And this is one of those movies where it did turn out good.
It does pay off.
And it's one of Tim Burton's best movies, in my opinion, which isn't necessarily saying a whole lot if you follow some of his later movies, because like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for example, are not super great.
I actually like that movie.
But no, it's definitely a great movie. It's probably one of my favorite Christmas movies, quote unquote. I don't technically consider it like a Christmas movie. It's probably more Halloween, whatever.
I'd consider it a holiday movie. You could pick what holiday.
And like I said, I watch it whenever I choose. In fact, a little while ago, me and a buddy of mine actually went and seen The Nightmare Before Christmas in concert. Like it was a symphony orchestra playing the music while the movie was playing. And that was a really cool experience.
Yeah,
and so I love this movie. It's been a big thing of mine ever since I was a kid. Again, like I said, my sister watched it a lot when I was a kid. So I remember loving it. I remember loving all the songs. Oogie Boogie is really freaking funny in that movie. So yeah, there's not really much else to say. It's just a great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, first of all, where the hell have you been for the past 25 years? But also, go out and watch it, because it's definitely a underrated Disney movie in a lot of ways, because not a lot of people really gave it a chance back then.
Right.
Now, for my number 6 pick. Now, with Easter only being a few weeks away, I thought I would share a family-friendly movie that everyone would love and appreciate. When I discovered this movie years back, I thought, wow, this is amazing! It's underrated and a must-see.
Probably not Die Hard, then.
It does have some...
It's not even animated. It would be on this list.
It does have some things you should be wary of, but it's okay. It's only rated PG. Your kiddos have probably seen a lot worse than Grand Theft Auto and the Call of Duties.
Or Sausage Party.
Yes, that too. it is my pleasure and honor to reveal to you my number 6 spot right after this B-roll. And we're back! My number 6 pick is Watership Down. Now, if you haven't seen Watership Down...
Is that the one with Mark Wahlberg and the oil rig?
No. No. Watership Down was recently remade on Netflix. It's about 8 hours long. A lot of people don't...
Well, 8 hours long?
Yeah.
So what kind of movie do you want me to watch?
Well, it's a huge novel.
Are you sure it's animated?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, the thing is, and there's an original one that is a lot... That's really gory. It's really bloody. Rabbits basically go against each other. They bite each other, rip skin off.
Now, hold up, man.
What movie?
You said this is an Easter movie, and you want to watch a movie about bunnies getting eaten.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of the bunnies have seizures and all that. And
what is this about?
Watership Down. Now, the one on Netflix, it takes a lot of those elements away, so it is pretty tame for you to watch. Plus, it's just absolutely beautiful. I've read the book series, I've watched the original, and I've watched the new one. I love really fucked up things.
Clearly. We established that last week.
The more fucked up something is, the more I'll enjoy it. On a less depressing note, PasMorning, what's your number 6 pick?
Number 6, I'm going with another Studio Ghibli film, Howl's Moving Castle.
I've heard of that one.
It is a good one. It is.
I've heard a lot of people, along with Spirited Away, a lot of people put that one on top of the list too.
That is definitely on there. Without trying not to go too deep in it, but it starts off with a girl. She's in a hat shop, and then now that I think it's been a minute since I watched it, but anyway, she gets cursed into an old lady and ends up becoming this guy who is not necessarily human, but is kind of aspect, and becomes his nanny. And then, later in and everything, and they literally are traveling across the world in a giant moving castle. It's got like big old spider legs going off on it. And yeah, and there's war and other stuff. There's like this dimensional doorway thing, and that kind of gets mixed into the story as well. And you see some unlikely partnerships in there, like, this person was like super bad at one point, and then some stuff happens, and now they're, kind of sort of friends. And but yeah, Studio Ghibli films are ones that it's hard to explain the experiences that you get. It's more of how you feel when you watch it. So anyone who has not, watched that, along with Spirited Away, I would definitely say watch a Studio Ghibli film, even if it's not this one. I'm sure you'll probably like it, or at least get something out of it that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll leave that at that. Ambrose, number 5.
Well, this is an interesting pick for me because it's actually a very new movie. It just came out a few months ago. I'm going to put Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I should have put that on my list too.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal movie.
Yeah,
in my opinion, best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
to be completely honest.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I loved it. At first, I was very skeptical of it with the animation style and everything, but then as soon as I saw it, it blew me away. It's very comic book-esque. I love the story to it. I love the jokes. I love the music even. Like, I'm not big into like rap music and stuff like that, but it kind of fit the theme of the movie very well.
I like the pastel colors, like almost how like they transition, like comic book, or like you would see like something would happen and you'd see like boom or something, you know, and not just, that comic book, but multiple different comic books are seen in there as well, even ones I personally never even heard of or knew of, that get to make an appearance, if only for a small, small bit. So, yeah.
So I really loved Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like I said, easily best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And it's early to put it in like a top 10 list because, like I said, it just came out like 5 months ago. But I don't anticipate another movie. I mean, it won the Oscar last year for the best animated movie, so that says a lot about it right there. And honestly, it has some of the funniest jokes I've ever heard. I love the part where Miles is trying to get out of school because he's turning into Spider-Man, and the security guard watches him like, "I know you snuck out last night, Miles," and in his head he's like, "Act stupid." He's like, "Who's Miles?" not that stupid! I love that part. That got me rolling. I saw the movie 3 times in theaters. Every time I saw that part, I had me rolling.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I wish I had put that movie on my list.
Yeah, you're making us think of stuff here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you guys think.
I don't like to think.
Yeah.
I like to be stupid.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what?
But yeah, I completely agree. That was a good movie. If you like Spider-Man or just animated flicks, period.
Honestly,
an easy story to get the concept on.
Yeah.
It explains itself just enough to where if you ain't a Spider-Man fan, you're at least going to understand, good portions of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, how can you not know Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't into comic books and superheroes, you know who Spider-Man is.
Right, because I never got into the comic books, but like everybody knows Spider-Man, and this is a different view of Spider-Man because it's multiverse, so it's completely different tangents.
Yeah.
So I agree. Good movie.
So on that note, Fuzzy, what is number 5?
Now, for my number 5 pick, I'm actually quite shocked because a lot of people have mixed feelings about it. And a lot of people actually consider this movie a huge failure. But I am going to go on the record and tell everybody that you're absolutely wrong about Legends of the Guardians, Owls of Ga'Hoole.
Is that holiday one with like
No.
Santa and stuff?
No?
No, that's a different. It's got like Jack Frost and stuff like that. That's a different movie. It's like
wasn't it something?
it's something with Legends, but it's not the same movie.
Okay.
But anyways,
Shows how much I know.
for a 2010 movie, the CGI in art was fantastic. I mean, I agree perfectly with this one person who said that even today, the animation and art really stands strong, even now. It really set the definition of what an animation movie should look like. The plot is also awesome, because you have owls who wear helmets, and they fight. It's an incredible movie. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I'm really surprised that a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, I remember seeing a trailer for it in theaters years ago, and I remember it did not interest me in the slightest.
The name almost sounds familiar, but I've got absolutely no recollection to even seeing any trailers of it.
Like, had you not mentioned the owls part, like, I wouldn't have understood what it was. I probably would have thought the same thing as PasMorning, that it was the movie about Jack Frost and all that stuff.
That's what I thought. It was the sequel.
Right, but honestly, it did not interest me in like the slightest when it first came out. I never saw it, and honestly, I probably won't.
But you guys should. It's really good.
Oh, so little owl chicks and whatnot.
Yeah, just looking at a picture of it, I can't guarantee that I ever would have watched it.
You should.
I love owls. They're my favorite bird, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it. It could be good. You don't know until you look, but
right.
just first look on it, I couldn't tell you.
Now, PM, what is your number 5?
This was already on the list beforehand. I think it was Ambrose. How to Train Your Dragon.
Yep.
Big dragon fan. Like the whole aspect of the main character Hiccup, which essentially means failure. He can't make it as a Viking, he can't whatever, and just completely by accident, just out of luck, ends up hitting a dragon and learning a different way to handle their situation. It's just like untold generations of humans and dragons, killing each other. And in an instance, the main character, tries to look into a different way and shows love and compassion toward the things that, since birth, he was believed to have been bad. And it does have like some dark overtones to it and everything, but more or less is done in a more cutesy and tolerable manner. And not to mention, it has dragons in it, which, I could have just said that and left it, because...
dragons are badass by themselves. That's all you need.
Right. Like dragons. Always like dragons.
Oh, yeah. Dragons are sweet.
It's already been on the list before, so I'm going to pass it to Ambrose. We're on 4 now, I think.
Yep.
So, What's your number 4?
And this is the point where the rest of my list is Disney. With the exception of one movie that's Disney Pixar, but still Disney.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So this is where it's gonna be kind of a lot of the same. But I got creative with my Disney picks. So, first of the big Disney ones, other than Nightmare Before Christmas, which was a little way back, I chose Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I can see that.
That was one I actually considered for my list.
Yeah, personally, I think it is the most underrated Disney movie that there is.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get a lot of recognition because it's so dark, and I mean, the original story is super dark. And I'll admit, this is one I actually didn't watch as a kid. I kind of, with a lot of people, I thought that doesn't really look all that interesting. It's just, dark, whatever. But I actually watched it for the first time a few years ago. And without even needing a second viewing, I immediately fell in love with the movie.
Well, you bought the soundtrack.
I have the soundtrack in my car. Yes, I do. But it's got some of the best music in all of Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has probably the best, cohesive soundtrack of all Disney movies. And the story is just beautiful. Like, even with the dark undertones to it, like, there's a lot of mention of hell, and it's a very religious sounding movie. But all that intertwined together, it just makes a very, very compelling story. And the gargoyles are really fun in that movie. I love the gargoyles. I love honestly, Claude Frollo, being as creepy as he is, he's still probably one of my favorite Disney villains. And even though I only saw this one for the first time a few years ago, I immediately fell in love with it. And it quickly became one of my favorite Disney movies of all time.
I'm not surprised. Now, yeah, see, it is underrated. It's not easily remembered or whatever. But that was a childhood movie, and I loved it. Definitely a good movie, if not, a little unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, for a movie from 1996, it definitely still has some of that dark feel to it in Disney.
For sure.
Now, it's one that I've apparently heard rumors that they're going to remake it into a live action, which is one that actually I'd be okay with.
I don't know if I'm super excited about that personally.
It'd be a little surprising to me if they went through with it, just because of how dark it is.
Yeah.
Well, if they do, we know that they're going to cut out Hell's Fire.
They're going to probably take out a good portion of
The songs
the
and
darker
everything.
bits that were in there and kind of liven it up in a more cutesy manner.
Which is kind of why I can have a little bit of...
I understand.
Yeah.
So
I like the dark in Disney, but my number 4, and you guys may never have heard of it, whatever. If I'm not mistaken, it is a Netflix original, or at the very least, something that you can find on Netflix. It is called Gantz Zero.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, well, alright. So it starts off with just a normal whatever. This guy's heading home. He's got a cake or something. He's getting on the train, and someone is running around stabbing people. And this dude, the main guy, gets stabbed. Wakes up in a weird room with a large black ball going by the name of Gantz. Now, this movie is based off of an anime show by the same name, minus the zero. And its graphics are comparable to what you would see a Final Fantasy movie having. So very vivid, very descriptive graphics on it. And it is very, very action-packed. The concept is that it's like a game. You get brought to the room, you get teleported out into the real world where large, disgusting monsters are taking over the city, and you have to wipe them all out before the timer hits 0. If it hits 0, then everyone playing the game dies. But if you essentially take everything out, you get points. The points can be put toward reviving someone who died.
Ooh, that's an interesting concept.
Yep, regaining your freedom, so you never have to play that game again. Or getting an upgrade. So the next time you get put into it, you get an upgraded item to, better help take out the monsters. And there is one part, and I won't spoil, but there is someone who essentially upgraded. I think they said it was 7 times or something, and that dude was a badass. You see a skyscraper-sized monster coming in, and then you see an equally large robot on the good person's side come in, and it is a very descriptive. There's no implied violence on this. I've said it before. I hate implied violence. I don't want to see, oh, this nasty thing's going to happen, and then they turn the camera. No, it is bloody. It is disgusting. All the creatures in there are inhuman and just, it's nasty. And the concept behind it was something that I just really liked. They're fighting for their own freedom, or at least for the sake of surviving.
I mean, it sounds like a really good idea. I kind of like the those kind of stories that are they're like video games in real life type of idea.
Yeah.
Sort of. So I like that concept, and honestly, that sounds like I might have to check that out.
I might have to check this out tonight.
And I looked it up while you were talking too, and I guess it is. It's not necessarily a Netflix movie, but I guess Netflix did do their own English dub of it.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a Netflix original, quote unquote.
Right.
But that's something I might honestly have to check out. It sounds really interesting.
If you like just going by graphics aspect, if you like the graphics that you would find in like a Final Fantasy movie or something, that is very comparable to. Yeah, I mean,
I like the way the Final Fantasy movies look too. So
yeah, so
well, we know what we're going to be watching tonight, Ambrose and I.
Me again, probably too. Actually,
right?
Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday when I was doing the list. I'm like, I could watch this again. I have watched it many times. Those faint of heart, or those who don't like super gore, this is a bloody anime. It gets nasty.
Ooh.
And there's disgusting aspects to it. It's gross, but it's very action packed. So if you like the action, watch this. I would greatly say do that. All rambling done and over with. Ambrose, your number 3.
So, my number 3 pick is another one that was already mentioned before by Fuzzy over there. Big Hero 6. I remember, this is another one that didn't necessarily appeal to me at first. This was before I was big into superheroes, but I didn't necessarily appeal to me at first. It kind of came in that transition period where I wasn't quite back into animated movies again. It came out when I was in college, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, this is a good movie. We should watch this." And I was like, alright, whatever. And I watched it and I loved it. Thought it was great. I think, without going too much into it, because we've already discussed it back when Fuzzy mentions it, but I love the way the story just goes. Mm-hmm. I love that it deals with really intense, really heartbreaking stuff, and it shows a way of how to deal with that. I like how, what obviously with the big twist in it, where Hero's brother and all that stuff, and how it shows him grieving and just how to deal with that, how to move on from that. It talks about the importance of having friends in your life to move on from that. And I just think it's a really well done movie.
For sure.
And it's easily, probably, as far as straight up Disney movies go, it's probably easily one of my favorites.
But it's not this?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I was looking at my notes.
It's Disney. It's also kind of partially Marvel, I think, too, but it's Disney. So yeah, that's all I need to say about it. I don't need to go too far into it. Yeah. We've already discussed it a little bit. So with that being said, number 3, Fuzzy.
Number 3. Now, we've already made an episode on this, and Ambrose and PasMorning have already talked about it. You don't want to hear it a third time, but
I missed that episode.
Die Hard.
My pick for number 3 is How to Train Your Dragon. So what are you doing? After this episode, go watch that episode, How to Train Your Editor. It's right there on the screen, and if you don't watch it, we're going to cry.
Don't worry, we're going to quiz you next time.
So yours is How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes.
Number 3.
Which has been on everyone's list.
Yep.
I'm getting a Great Mighty Pooh feel.
Except this is, not a big piece of shit like Mighty Pooh.
Right, no, just memorable.
PM, number 3.
Number 3. I tried. I so tried, just because, we got a Disney nerd here. And I figured most of the Disney stuff would probably be taken care of and stuff. And I'm not super into Disney, but Hercules.
Ooh, Hercules, another very underrated one.
Yeah, well, Hercules is like my number 1 Disney movie ever. I watched it when I was a kid, watched it all, walks through my life and stuff, and it's a Disney movie that I personally wouldn't mind just watching again for any old reason.
Hercules is another good one. That's one of my favorites too. And
I've always been into mythology and stuff like that, and like those kind of things, and the cuter art style, and I like the actor. Big fan of the guy who plays Phil.
Danny DeVito. Yep.
Yeah.
You gotta love James Woods as Hades.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, he is.
Well, what I think was cool about Hercules too is it's one of those movies that they changed the story quite a bit.
Yeah,
they
did.
Quite drastically,
right?
To make it more family friendly,
right?
But in that regard, it's one of those things where it almost made a more interesting story to change it.
Right.
Well, and so it's one of those things it changed it, but it's okay. I'm cool.
And that's the thing about mythology. If you're like a hardcore, mythology nerd, like I used to be, I kind of fell out of it a little bit. But the thing about mythology is that it's a story, and there's a million different ways to tell a story. So this is done not in traditional sense to how most mythology is done, but nonetheless is done very well.
Not to mention, if they had done the exact Greek mythology way, it would have been really fucked up.
Yeah, it would.
All kinds of shit going on.
Yeah, a lot of Greek mythology either begins with or ends in death. So
or sex.
Yeah, that too.
Ooh.
Yeah,
or both at the same time.
Yeah, they don't say it, but in the Hercules movie, but in mythology and a lot of different things, Zeus is a big man whore.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
and that's actually. One of the things that they changed in the movie was Hera is not the villain. She would have technically been in the actual Greek mythology.
Yep.
Because one of the reasons his Greek name is actually Heracles, which is interesting that he's the only character in the whole movie who has his Roman name as opposed to his Greek name. Mm-hmm. But Heracles means Bane of Hera, and the reason she hates him is because he's a reminder of the fact that Zeus was unfaithful to her. Mm-hmm. So, that in and of itself, right there, would have been a major thing. Disney would have been like, "No, we can't do that." So, Hera's his mother. That's the end of it. Go away.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting thing is there's a character in there, and he's not technically if you go into the mythology, he's not supposed to be there. Up in the clouds with the other gods. Narcissus, which was not a god, was seen in there, and there's an interesting story behind. I personally like the story of Narcissus. I'm not going to say it, but it just a very interesting story, and you can find the Hercules was done in live action stuff. There was one that they had Dwayne Johnson in, and
which wasn't that great.
It was okay. I wouldn't watch it twice, but it was alright. But yeah, this is the one Hercules-related anything that I have no problem going back to, aside from actually, nerding out in old mythology.
Oh yeah.
Number 2.
Number 2. We on the home stretch now.
Ambrose, go for it.
No need to waffle about it. It's Toy Story.
Yep, that almost made it on my list too.
Disney Pixar, the first Disney Pixar movie, and it's just a great movie. There's really not much to just say about it. It's a great movie.
Chances are you probably have seen this movie or am at least slightly aware of it.
Yeah. And like I said, not much to say about it. It's Toy Story. It's a great movie that I watched millions of times as a child. I remember my mom tells me stories when I was a kid. My grandmother had to send me multiple copies of the movie because I watched it on repeat so much that I wore the tapes out.
Yeah.
So she sent me that movie over and over and over again.
Yeah, and back when I was a kid, we even had some of the old action figures and stuff, like the old Woody stuffed doll thing, which probably shouldn't say this, but makes a great weapon. It is a cloth doll with a hard plastic head on it. And you just grab it by the feet and just swing.
Smack people with it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're in production anymore.
Probably not. Probably for that reason. But yeah, like I said, I don't need to say much about Toy Story. If you watch animated movies at all, you know Toy Story.
Yeah.
I don't need to say much about it.
You should know.
And it's got 2 great sequels with a third one on the way. And
now, I never got into the sequels. I was personally perfectly fine with Toy Story just being its own.
Yeah, I mean, so was I. But the sequels are really good, though. With that being said, like I said, I don't really feel the need to go super in depth with that one. It's Toy Story number 2. That's all there is to it. Fuzzy, number 2.
My number 2 pick is The Lion King. Now, growing up, I went to the movie theaters about a dozen times or so, and I was hooked to it. I didn't have Power Rangers or other action figures, but I had action figures of The Lion King, and they were my prized possessions.
Those Power Ranger dolls make good weapons, too.
And the Transformers ones.
Oh, yeah. No, those are just choky casters.
That's true.
But it's going to hold a special place in my heart as well because there's so many valuable lessons. And I don't want to dive too deeply. Into biblical theology because that's Ambrose's thing and all that. And please do not turn the comments down into a shit show about religion and Scientology. Well,
Scientology?
Yes.
We ain't Tom Cruise.
But anyways, the scene where Rafiki tells Simba to look harder into the puddle to remember who he is, with Mufasa coming through the clouds and reminding Simba that he is the son of the one true king. It really does feature some heavy Christian symbolism, which I really stuck with me, and I really like The Lion King.
Yeah, I didn't personally get those aspects. They in that scene, it was like look within yourself and figure out just who it is. Remember where you came from and strive to do better than those that came before you. That's kind of the message I took from that. But really not much needs to even be said on Lion King. And I'm not as big a Disney nerd as other people, so not say anything else on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with your sort of theology there.
And that's okay.
I don't think that's what the point of the movie is at all. You can make that argument, but it's definitely not what they're going for there. But we can get into that debate some other time.
Yes.
All right. Number 2, PasMorning. PM. Whatever the hell you are.
Number 2, Final Fantasy Advent Children. I am a huge Final Fantasy fan, and yeah, Final Fantasy is great. Animation style is great. It follows a lot of the characters that you see from it's based on the Final Fantasy VII game. Spoiler alert: you get to see Sephiroth again. So,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, and so just. No point in getting super into that if you're not a super Final Fantasy whatever. It would help if you knew at least a little bit about, the Final Fantasy VII story before getting into it because it plays a lot off of what happens in the game itself. Story is very hard to follow otherwise and is kind of a little bit in a few spots as well. But yeah, animation style is done really good. I do like some of the action scenes, Sephiroth, and that should really just be enough to say, yeah, good movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy too, obviously, as you would notice if you watched our top 10 video game villains list. Both me and PasMorning had a Final Fantasy villain in there. So, Advent Children is a really good one. Like, the animation quality alone is enough to at least pique your interest in it. Like, it's next level, especially from when it came out. It's like next level CGI stuff to it, so it's pretty good.
Well, an interesting thing about Final Fantasy is if you look into the old games and stuff, especially on the PlayStation, a lot of times what they did is they would use the newest format, the best new style. Yep. They went above and beyond every opportunity they had, pushing whatever thing they were on to the absolute limit. And I see. I hear you chuckling over there. They pushed it hard. But yeah, and this is another one of those instances where Final Fantasy just does what Final Fantasy does, looks amazing, and puts a very compelling story out.
Yeah.
Ambrose, what is your number one pick?
My number one pick, it should be no surprise to anyone. It's
My Disney Princess Stories.
the best Disney movie of all time, and it is, of course, Frozen. No, I'm just kidding. It's Lion King.
I was about to say.
If anybody had ever guessed, it's Lion King. It's not just my favorite animated movie. It's my favorite movie, period. It's a movie that got me through a lot of stuff in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched it all the time. Similar to Toy Story, it was a movie that I had to get multiple copies of because I just watched it on repeat all the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's easily the best movie ever, in my opinion. I can't say much about it that already hasn't been said. It's a fantastic movie. It does a great job of dealing with death. Mm-hmm. I think Mufasa's death scene is arguably the most emotional part of a movie ever.
Man, every time I watch The Lion King, I always break down crying when Mufasa dies.
Even though you know it's coming, you still can't be prepared for it.
Yeah,
it's
and
got
that's something you never can completely prepare for either. It's got life, death, depression, working your way through the issues that you have.
Yeah. And on top of that, the soundtrack is just amazing. Like,
for sure.
Not just the songs that they sing, like Hakuna Matata and Be Prepared and all that stuff, but even just the background score. Mm-hmm. Lion King is another soundtrack that I have in my car, too. So.
Yeah, not to mention James Earl Jones'
lovely
voice in that.
Yeah. And actually, it's one of the few Disney movies that's, other than like some of the newer ones, but it's one of the few Disney movies that actually has a decent sequel to it. Lion King 2 is actually a pretty decent sequel. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say much about Lion King that hasn't already been said. It's an amazing movie. It's number one in not just animated quality, but in my favorite movies of all time.
When the Lion King live action movie comes out, you guys better be ready because we may actually go.
Is that happening? Is that a thing?
That's this year, yep. In June.
I don't know.
July, June, something.
Yes. You guys might want to be ready because we might even go live to talk about The Lion King. Nothing's confirmed yet, but be ready because both Ambrose and I are really excited about it.
Really?
I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that it's good, but I'm also extremely skeptical.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Mm-hmm. I hope it's good just because the thing it's based off is amazing. I mean, you can't forget The Lion King and all the lessons that you learn, but you also can't forget when something's done awful in something's name,
Yeah.
So hopefully that goes good.
On that note, Fuzzy, what is number one?
My number one pick
is The Lion King.
I already had picked The Lion King.
It's number 1 and 2. It's just that damn good.
No.
You're going to be disappointed because mine's not Lion King.
Damn it!
Now, I loved Zootopia, and it's a movie I've watched a million times and probably will watch a million more times.
I'm not surprised.
Admittedly, it wasn't easy picking between The Lion King and this, and Ambrose and I are probably going to get into a bitch fight later about it. But as mentioned, I'm a fan of anthropomorphism, which makes the plot basically infinite on what you can do. When you stick with just talking animals, you do limit yourself to some extent. I mean, realistically, you're not going to see Simba and Scar and Rafiki going throughout the city doing this or doing that. Now, I love Scar and Ambrose loves Simba, but...
I love Scar, too.
Me too.
But with Zootopia...
I really like Scar in the Hercules movie. It's a really good appearance.
Yep.
But I just loved how diverse the cities looked. The diversity of the creatures, the plot of how predators and prey come together to live in a utopia. Overall, I just loved the movie. And I'm going to be singing the main song, which I can't seem to remember off the top of my head nonstop for the next 20 years.
Yeah, so Zootopia, it is a good, solid Disney movie. I really like it. I wouldn't rate it as highly as other people, in my opinion. I think partially, probably it suffers from the same thing that movies like Moana did, is that it just got overhyped before I seen it. So it got so hyped up, people saying, "Oh, it's the best Disney movie in years," and I'm like,
That's
"Okay,
fair.
cool." And I watch it, and I liked it. Don't get me wrong. Same with like Frozen and all those other ones. I liked them,
They built it up too
but
high.
it was just way too hyped up, and I couldn't get into it that much.
I mean, that's fair.
I still really liked it. I thought the story was funny. I loved the part with the sloth at the DMV. That was probably the best part of the movie.
Right.
But it was overhyped, and it just couldn't live up to that expectation, in my opinion. All right, PasMorning. Number 1. You get to be the last one to do things.
Yep. Number 1, my personal number 1, is Berserk. Golden Age Arc 3, The Advent.
AKA The Lion King. Know what?
No.
So, tell me, does somebody die in this one?
No, but a lot of people die in this one.
Oh. Well,
Oh, yeah.
That's depressing.
Yay, death and destruction.
Yeah, there is a lot of, depressing. Now, obviously, you would want to watch, the first 2 movies to fully understand it, but the third one is definitely my most favorite one. It's got murder, sex, betrayal.
Just like Game of Thrones.
It really is kind of
Very descriptive deaths, demons, just mass murder in a few spots. So yeah, it takes place with a character named Guts, who wields a giant cloud-esque sword, giant, heavy sword called the Dragon Slayer, and is straight up betrayed. Well, he did some betrayal first, but was straight up betrayed and then given away as a sacrifice, which forever brands him as someone who will always have death looming over his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a very well animated movie based off of the anime. Definitely would recommend watching the movie because the animation style is done a whole lot better.
That's debatable, my friend.
Well, you've never finished the anime or watched the movie.
I finished the anime.
You should watch the movie then.
I have watched the movie.
Yeah. The animation style is
my
done
own
so
lonely
much
island
better.
over here.
But yeah, it's done better, especially in the sex scenes, which is a lot more descriptive, and especially the death scenes. You get to see, blood, guts, dismemberment, giant pools of blood, and just, I could go on and on about just how much of a really good, feel-good movie this is. I mean, I like that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
It's very action-packed. If you're into something that's gonna have violence, action, just, you would like this. Just be prepared that if you're not into, like I said, there's blood and dismemberment, and it's descriptive. So if you're not into that kind of thing, it probably wouldn't be for you. If you are into it, start with the first movie and work your way up to this one. You will not be disappointed.
All right. Well, that being said, I think that's all we have time for today, which is good because we're done.
And Ambrose is hungry. And
I am hungry. I want some food.
And he's ready to receive a sock so he can scream and yell to the heavens that he has been freed from my dungeon.
Sure, we'll go with that. Anyways, so with that being said, that was our collective top 10 lists of animated movies. Go ahead and leave some of your favorites down in the comments below. We'd love to see what you guys think. Also, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And let us know what you want to watch next time. Next time we will be back to our regular format of trailers and movie discussions and all that stuff. So let us know what you want to see.
I'm Fuzzy.
I'm Ambrose.
PasMorning.